Welcome back. In the previous video, we installed Git on our Windows and Linux computers. In this video, we're going to create our very first repository using Git and GitHub.
できるよ。
Before creating a Git repository, we first need to create a GitHub account. First, we'll head into our browser and search for GitHub. Then click on Sign Up. From there, we'll create a new account using either Google, Apple, or the email option. After successfully creating your new GitHub account, one of the most important settings to check is your username. Make sure your username matches the name you want people to find you by, because this is how the public will identify you on GitHub. If you're not satisfied with your username, click on Settings in your Profile section, then go to Account, scroll down, and look for the Change Username option. Now that we have finished creating our GitHub account, there is one last thing we need to do before creating a Git repository. We need to set up our Git identity. This tells Git who you are and allows your commits to be associated with your name and email. Let's set up our Git username and GitHub email. On our Windows PC, we'll locate Git Desktop and open it. In our Git terminal, we'll run the following command: git config global user.name your name. Replace your name with the name you want to use for your Git identity, and then press Enter. Next, we'll run the same command again, but this time we'll replace user.name with user.email. Enter your GitHub email address, and then press Enter.
Enter.
Adding our Git identity tells Git who we are by associating our name and email with the commits we make. This is important because Git uses this information to identify who made each change in a project. However, there's one important thing to understand. Adding your Git identity does not connect Git to your GitHub account or authenticate you with GitHub. It only tells Git who you are. To check if our Git identity is connected, run the following command: git config global user.name. This will display the Git username we configured. Then run git config global user.email. This will display the email address we configured. If both show the correct information, our Git identity has been set up successfully.
Let's create our first Git repository. What is a Git repository? A repository is a folder that Git watches on your computer. That's it. No magic. Git keeps track of all the changes inside that folder. The Git repository life begins. Once Git is watching the folder, it starts recording the whole project history and tracking all your changes. Let's create our first Git repository now with the terminal ready for your commands.
First, open your Git terminal. We'll start by creating a new project folder. Run mkdir my first project, then press Enter. This creates a new folder called My First Project on your computer. Next, we'll move inside that folder. Run cd my first project, then press Enter. Now we're inside our project folder. Next, we'll initialize Git by running git init, then press Enter. Git will create a hidden .git folder inside our project. This is what turns our normal project folder into a Git repository. At this point, our repository exists locally on our computer. It is not connected to GitHub yet. Now that our local Git repository has been created, let's connect it to GitHub. First, go back to GitHub and create a new repository. Click on the plus icon and select New Repository. Give your GitHub repository the same name as your local project, for example, My First Project. We'll leave the other options at their default settings and create the repository. Once the GitHub repository has been created, you'll see a repository page with a URL. Copy that repository URL. Now go back to our Git terminal. Make sure you're still inside the My First Project folder. We'll connect our local repository to GitHub by running git remote add origin your GitHub repository URL. Replace your GitHub repository URL with the URL you copied from GitHub, then press enter. This tells Git that our local repository has a remote location called origin. That remote location is our GitHub repository. To verify the connection, run git remote v, then press enter. If the GitHub repository URL appears in the output, our local Git repository is now connected to GitHub.
We have created our Git identity, initialized our local repository, created a GitHub repository, and connected them successfully. For completed checkpoints, Git identity, local repository, GitHub repository. Next video, Git branches. See you in the next video.